All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature. Fred, you ready for a marathon?
Let's go.
Man, in the next 2 days, we have 8, because we just booked Susan Gary for tomorrow afternoon. We have 8 episodes being recorded in the next 2 days, and we're starting out with an absolute bang. Before we jump into that, is there anything on your mind, anything you've been waiting to get out to the folks in listener land?
Yeah, I just want to say hang on because the cold weather is about over.
Yeah, I don't know if it's ever really about over in January. It kind of comes and goes, right?
That's right. You know, normally we get the freeze in February, but for some odd reason it came a little bit early.
I have a feeling February has something up its sleeve.
That's right. So don't put away the cold clothes yet.
Well, our guest dressed in layers, and she's ready for whatever happens here. So let's give her, let me pull up her thing here. I never have this ready. You know, these guests go to the trouble of giving us nice bios, and you'd think I would have it pulled up and ready to go, and somehow I don't ever have it pulled up and ready to go.
And that's the new phone, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm the guy who gets the new phone every time. I have a problem, Fred. I need the newest technology.
That's
okay.
Right. I live vicariously through you. I'm just like, oh.
This lady has quite the bio. I am going to summarize it, or else I will embarrass her by talking for a minute straight because her bio is very impressive. But let's go ahead and get our guest intro music cued and get after it. Allison Monroe is an impact-driven community leader with a passion to activate resources and motivate people to action. She has a contagious enthusiasm for new ideas, people, and activities. Volunteerism and strong nonprofit leadership are powerful forces that have the potential to transform communities in a positive way. Man, I could not agree more. Allison believes we can build stronger communities through Collin County. Volunteer McKinney is one of our city's greatest assets, and she's excited to take Volunteer McKinney to the next level and be a part of this lasting impact on our community. Allison's got a background in entrepreneurship. She's founded and operated several companies in the U.S., Jordan, and Australia. I promise we're going to get into that. She was in the Peace Corps in the Middle East. Going to get into that as well. Oh my gosh. I'm going to stop talking so we can get into this lady, this interview. She is a 2022 graduate of Leadership McKinney, which she will probably tell you is the best class ever. However, she would be wrong because 2020 is obviously the best class ever, or 2025 or 2026 or whoever you happen to talk to. Community service is central in Allison's life. She serves on a lot of nonprofit boards with the theme of equity and creating opportunities to our most vulnerable populations. She lives here in McKinney and has 4 active children in our school district, MISD. She loves volunteering, whitewater kayaking, yoga, camping, and travel, and she's more interesting than both of us put together. Please welcome the Executive Director, is that your title? The Executive Director of Volunteer McKinney, Miss Allison Monroe. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you.
Wow. I don't know, how do we go from that bio to jumping in here?
Yeah, I just want to know, like, with all that you're involved in and the kids and all those other things, do you actually sleep or do you have like some
At
secret?
least 9 hours a night.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like I'm doing life wrong somehow. If I'm not doing nearly that much with my waking hours, and I don't get nearly 9 hours of sleep a night.
No, that's right. I'm hyper inefficient. I feel unworthy to even own a bed.
I'm going to go ahead and just jump straight in because Allison has a packed day. She has her first ever board meeting of the McKinney Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors because she was just just sworn in very recently. Don't want to be late to your first board meeting. So we have a hard stop in 31 minutes. So this is going to be a quick hits, get after it episode. We always love to start with the personal story. We always love to start with the individual. Yeah, your organization is doing great things. We want to hear all about that. But this podcast is all about stories and celebrating what makes us as in the good people of McKinney, those who live here, work here, make their lives here, celebrating what makes us unique by nature. Allison Monroe, how in the world did you get started on the very interesting path that you've taken to this point? Tell us whatever summary you want from growing up years, formative stuff, making decisions on the kind of person you want to be, the kind of life you want to have.
Well, community service has always been at the core, and I'm a lifelong volunteer. Although this is the first time I've ever worked in nonprofit in my role at Volunteer McKinney. So right out of college, I had studied Chinese at university, and so I wanted to go to China in the Peace Corps. But upon graduation, I had a professor come up to me. I was a photographer at the time, and say that he was looking for a photographer to go to Israel and Palestine to explore what was going on there. This is in 2002, and I said, I don't even know if Arafat is Jewish, or I don't know anything about the Middle East. Like, I have a white blank slate, and I went to a meeting to check on this, and it was like a Thursday, and he says, "Here's your plane ticket. We leave on Friday." And to document their trip, and they were doing a fact-finding mission, speaking to people on both sides of the aisles, like just trying to figure out what was going on there. The Second Intifada was happening. I went back home to pack, and I got my package from the Peace Corps saying that they were sending me to Jordan. And so I thought, well, I had plans to go to Asia, and I guess that's not happening. So I ended up living in the Middle East and working for years. We were evacuated out of the Peace Corps because of the war in Iraq. After 5 months, I moved back and worked as a photojournalist for an Arabic daily newspaper. I lived in Bethlehem. I lived in Amman, Jordan, and worked as a photojournalist covering the Intifada, covering what was going on until 2024. So moved back to America, got married, started having babies, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I just started my own businesses. And eventually those took me to Australia. We ran restaurants in Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, nobody's ever heard of before. And eventually ended up back in the Middle East and back in Texas, and which is where I'm from Dallas, family from McKinney as well. And and now I'm here, and I've been running before Volunteer McKinney, I'd been running, was CEO of a global marketplace for education. So we were selling resources in every single language. It was like an Etsy for education. It was digital downloads. It was physical products. You could find it whatever you were trying to teach or learn. Unfortunately, about a year and a half ago, we were under a massive cyber attack that shut the company down in one day. So after 5-6 years of building that incredible business, we were a recipient of the MEDC Innovation Award, and to be headquartered here in McKinney. And so that very sad day a year and a half ago. It's under FBI investigation, actually, and so we're trying to get it back, and that kind of thing. But as an entrepreneur, you're willing to take risk and go all in. And so the opportunity to join Volunteer McKinney came up about the same time, and I'd secretly always knew what I could do with that role. Like, I was just really always watching, like, what a tremendous resource to be able to leverage and work with our community's assets and people. And so I've been doing that ever since. My first role in nonprofit.
Man, that's like you want to talk about a treetop sprint across all the details there.
Oh my gosh, man.
I'm like, I was like, holy smokes, that was 20 years compressed down into like, minute and a half. Okay, so I have to know, most people, when they hit high school, you see the academic advisor, guidance counselor, whatever, and they say you have to have a foreign language and Spanish, French, but you are instantly Chinese.
Yeah, and I was terrible at it. My professor thought I wasn't studying. Like, I must be dyslexic or something. I was terrible at Spanish, too. It was awful. I barely have English down. Like, I spelled my daughter's name wrong on her high school swim sign that goes in our front yard. Like,
oh, no.
Like, I'm really bad at languages. But Arabic is different. I became fluent in Arabic after living in the Middle East, and it's phonetic. It's always the same. There's a rule. The rule always applies. Like, it is, like, a system I can follow.
So is it true that English is one of the hardest languages?
Yes, absolutely.
Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Well, once you figure out the whole right to left thing, and every little stroke of the pen, every dot, every hash, every little mark means something in Arabic. Like, it's the Cyrillic languages. They're just beautiful languages. Like, I'm completely captivated by people that aren't from the Middle East that are fluent in Arabic, because to hear someone speak Arabic, it is a beautiful language. It's the most exotic thing, It's the most un-Western thing I can imagine, of all the languages you can hear someone speak. Urdu is very similar to Arabic in its structure and its function, right? Like, Urdu is kind of a sister language to Arabic.
Similar alphabets, yeah.
Yeah.
And Farsi. Mm-hmm.
And Farsi too, yeah. Now, my brother's in Saudi Arabia right now, so he can tell me a lot more about Arabic than I personally know. So, what was that process like, being someone of American birth, someone who's grown up in Western society, being a woman in Jordan, which Jordan, from what I know, and then living in Israel, of course, these are more progressive countries. They're not hardline, Sharia or Islamic law. Like, you don't have to wear the traditional dress. You're allowed to have more freedoms as a woman. What was that process like for you, exploring a very different culture and becoming normalized with the way things happen in a part of the world that operates under completely different assumptions about government and communication and individual rights and the way that civic things happen over there? Talk about that for a little bit.
Yes, well, it was really interesting because I actually moved to the Middle East 6 months after 9/11. So
Oh, wow.
here you have a 22-year-old, like, blonde Texan moving to the Middle East. Like, everyone thought I was nuts, right? So I'm obviously a risk taker on
Yeah.
a lot of levels.
Yeah.
But when in the Peace Corps, they do an amazing job of their cultural education and just getting you spend months learning how things work, what the expectations are, how to behave if you want to fit in, right? Like, just, and so that you can be effective in your work, right? So they don't just throw you in. So you spend 3 months doing that. I did that. I mean, so that was just fascinating to me. I mean, and just the fabric of all of the Middle East and the culture and the richness of everything they do, and just the pace of life to just go slower. They're beers, we're doers. That was a totally different concept to me. Like, it's okay to just sit and have tea, slow down to that point. That's really still hard for me to
Yeah.
do.
Okay. Yeah. Considering all the things that you do, plus I like how you went from, so it's not Canberra. How do you pronounce that?
Canberra.
Okay. So that when you said that, I was like, where is that? And you said, no, people heard of it. I was like, oh, I've seen it on a map. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you went from there, right? You said, having babies and then boom, boom, boom right there. So how do you balance up being versus doing with all that you do?
We tried, my husband and I really love to spend time outside. So kayaking, mountain biking, hiking. We really try to connect with being outside, and that's really important. And you have to be really intentional about that right now because we live in a concrete forest. We're fast paced. And yoga too. Yoga is my moving meditation. And I do hot yoga. It's kind of the only thing that can meet my fire with fire. So yeah,
There you go.
but that slows me down. I mean, but it's hard.
But no goats. No goats in your yoga.
I've never tried that.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that.
I don't understand that either.
Someone needs to explain it to me.
I don't get it either. At some point, if you are a goat yogi, can you let us know, please? Like, send an email to mail@McKinneyPodcast.com. I just want to have a goat yogi sitting in that chair
Explaining
so
it.
they can explain what on earth is this? Just like a avocado toast millennial quirky thing, or is there something more to it?
Listen, I know people who have, tried goat yoga, and ultimately they all tell me there's nothing like, being in whatever pose, position, whatever, and having an animal on you and then relieve themselves on you. And I'm like, no?
I'm sorry, that's not for me.
That's a hard no.
I would
for
prefer
me.
to be in a sweat box rather than have some small animal crawling all over me.
That's not very relaxing. I don't understand
No.
how you can get into it. But anyway, I need it explained. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to try it before I knock
It doesn't feel very zen, I'm not
No.
going to lie.
Yeah.
Well, I love animals, so it would go from yoga to petting, and feeding.
So you go from Peace Corps chapter of your life in the Middle East to going into food and beverage and managing a restaurant, owner operator of an establishment in Canberra. How does that happen? That seems like an abrupt turn in your career trajectory.
Yes. Well, my first husband was a chef, and he was a chef for the royal family in Jordan.
Oh.
And so he had family in Australia who wanted to open restaurants. So we opened an event center and 2 restaurants.
Okay.
And I did the business marketing side of that.
Very cool.
So now, are you a foodie?
I forget to eat I forget to feed my children. Every day they have to eat again. 3 meals.
What a
It is
concept.
lot. After you've had 4 young children under 6 and own restaurants, I mean, food is the last thing I ever want to think about. If someone else is cooking, I will eat it.
Okay,
I'm good.
so along with no sleep, no eat. And so, James,
Allison, are you a vampire? No. These sounds like things a vampire in hiding would say.
It's like, or is she actually the Terminator? And has an internal power source.
Well, she operates at a pace and an intensity where she perhaps could play the Terminator in one of those movies if she wanted to, but I don't know. I don't think she has time for that. She's busy doing too many other things.
No, and being, she still has time to be, and so is yoga a daily thing?
I try, yeah.
Okay. Do you schedule it? Or
Yes,
do you,
everything's
okay,
scheduled.
it's got to be.
Come on, you knew that. You knew the answer to that. I've only known Allison for 25 minutes, and I can tell you that everything is scheduled. Her schedule has a schedule.
Yeah, I know.
You schedule time to do your schedule, don't you?
Well, and having a really good manager at work is very helpful for that. It's very hard to be at the pace that I go at without having, a good backup.
So you're in, how long are you in Australia?
2 years.
Okay. What's it like being an expatriate running a business in Australia? My understanding is they're more friendly than some other countries, but they're still very nationalist in the way that they do things as far as owning businesses, owning real estate. Like they prefer that Australians own and run things. Like they're not too terribly friendly to complete outsiders. What was your experience there of owning and operating a business as someone who's not from there?
I mean, I think they have a really interesting approach to immigration. I'm going to talk about this, but not in a controversial way.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's an island to begin with. So so letting people in, it really is on their terms.
Yeah.
So when we first got there, we were on a visitor's visa while our work visa was being set up. And we were not allowed to rent a car, rent a house, enroll our kids in school, get a cell phone, nothing. Everything was connected.
Really?
And then once we got our visa that we could be there to work and live, they were going to charge us $20,000 a year per student to put them in public school. Isn't that fascinating?
Wow.
That is definitely one way of doing it.
So it's like it had to be really worth it for us to be there.
Yeah.
And for that, I was just very different way. Anyway, not to be controversial talking about it.
Now, I'll be controversial
Yeah.
to
Go
talk
right
about
ahead.
it.
Hell.
The whole immigration thing is so much different of a conversation in Texas, in Arizona, in California. Lots of it's kind of like the chicken versus the pig conversation. The chicken's contribution to dinner is sustainable. Like the chicken gives an egg to dinner. Well, the pig gives itself.
Life.
The pig's all in. The bacon, the pork, the ham. It's not a renewable resource. That conversation for Texas, we're the pig in the immigration conversation. Indiana's the chicken in the immigration conversation. It's fascinating to hear that approach to immigration because so many people come here just because we have better opportunities, better programs, better a life, less dangerous life than they have in their country where they come from. And it's a giant magnet. And I don't know if we have a high enough bar.
Well, but here I am, an American as an immigrant in
Yeah.
another first world country. It's
Yeah.
just a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
And I was still not just like, absolutely, come in. And so you think,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it's just a different
In
experience.
Australia,
Not
it
many
has
people
the
have.
position of what can you do to make us better?
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
you offering to us? Why should we let you be
Yeah.
here? It's just a completely different approach.
It's just different. And they're an island and they have a different political, I mean, it's not apples to apples, right? It's very
Oh, yeah.
different. But anyway.
It's literally the other side of the
Yeah.
world.
And so I was an immigrant, an American immigrant, trying to get, but I love, again, their pace of life. It's just beautiful. I mean, grocery stores close at like 7. Gas stations, like people close and people go home.
Yeah.
And they just spend time at home with their families.
So is there a perception of Americans in a general sense that we are intense, crazy, workaholic weirdos who need to chill out?
Well, I haven't been there. That was 10 years ago. So things
Sure.
have changed in 10 years. So.
Sure.
But I mean, they just have a different pace.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so I'm really drawn to that. That's what I liked about the Middle East. That's what I liked about Australia. Like something to force me to slow down.
Yeah.
Because I am not wired that way.
So are you going to open an Airbnb to help people to slow down? Is that somewhere on your dream board?
We have
vision board?
Airbnbs.
So how you're
Right,
you're in Australia for 2 years, 10 years ago. You make your way back to the States, or did you go? You went back to the Middle East after that, before coming back
Well,
to
I
the U.S.
used to take my children to the Middle East every year, unless I was very pregnant.
Sure. 4 kids, right?
Yeah, they've all been there multiple times. So I was, yeah, that's a different story why I came back to America from Australia, but
Sure.
not for today. But
Understood.
I was in the Middle East with my kids for 3 months over the Australian summer. Like I threw them into or into a little private Christian school in the Middle East, but like full immersion for Arabic. I've been really obsessed with language immersion for my children, and so, yeah, and which is why one of the reasons it brought me to McKinney was Caldwell Elementary. So we've been at Caldwell. My children went through that dual language program because it's just this incredible place where the kids there, they get, I don't know if you're familiar, it's the only dual language campus in McKinney, but the kids spend half of their school year in Spanish, immersed in Spanish. So this obviously with the company I started, having another language and all the benefits, countless benefits that come with, for their own brain cognition, but also for relating to the rest of the world. These all things were really important to me. But what was your original question?
No, I was trying to figure out how you found yourself back to America, found your global education marketplace and whatnot.
Well, I skipped over. I had an Arabic education company like 20 years ago, where I went to the Middle East and found all of these, because I'm trying to teach my kids Arabic, right, when they're young. And so, but I just wanted secular. I wanted like Dr. Seuss, like that kind of thing. So I had to really look and find. So I would go to the Middle East and I would, look under every rock and back alley and knocking on doors without phone numbers and finding these creators. A lot of times they're moms and they're teachers who are making music, nursery rhymes, or Montessori tools, or picture books. And I would find them and would have, hundreds of them stacked up in their dining rooms and no way to distribute them. So I started going all over the Middle East and finding these creators. This is before we were selling anything online. Okay, this is long before internet, like online e-commerce. That's the word, e-commerce. And so I was really starting to do that. And so I started finding just brilliant things, brilliant people making beautiful, beautiful things. So I started a secular Arabic education distribution company globally. And I remember when Apple used to you could go to the Apple store and they do like a one-on-one hour where they teach you how to use their products if you bought one.
That was before the Genius Bar.
Yes. So I went and I was like, I found this DVD, this video. Actually, they were still making VHS. I found this producer basically making like Baby Einstein in Arabic. And I'm like, I want to sell these online. No one was doing this yet. And I'm like, how do I show people what they're buying? Like, how will they know why would they buy it? And at Apple, they're like, there's this new thing called YouTube, right? So he shows me YouTube. And so I set up a YouTube account, like beginning of YouTube. So now I put samples of these DVDs, and then we started making more and more educational resources. So I have like 1.5 million subscribers on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, because like...
You were OG.
Yeah. And I was the only one doing Arabic for probably a decade.
Is it still running today?
Yeah, I don't put content on it anymore. I was with so I scaled that company for Arabic education. That's what I took that model, went to Australia, came back, scaled that to all world languages. Because I'm like, these creators are all over the world, right? They're all, and they don't, and especially if you're talking about Bangladesh or, third world, or the right term is developing countries, trying to bring this extra income, so that's why I created a marketplace type situation where people, because now e-commerce is a thing, right?
Yeah.
So they can have digital downloads to get their passive income. They want to ship their blocks and puzzles, they can do that. And so that's where I went with that. And the company we built, it's so beautiful. But
we're going to get to McKinney, Volunteer McKinney, I promise. These stories are why we have the podcast, man.
What on earth?
Yeah, Allison is here in our town, but she's done so many other really cool things that she brings with her in her experience.
Yes.
When we talk about the gig economy, when we talk about skilled labor in other countries on the other side of an ocean, it has got to be one of the world's most equalizing things. Because in a lot of these countries, especially if you're a female creator, you're not as free to start a business, to do as you please. Some of these countries view education for women differently. There are certain cultural things that are just very big barriers. But whether it's Fiverr or Etsy or some of these online marketplaces, over the years, I've become more and more aware culturally of how powerful and inclusive these kind of platforms are for marginalized demographics, whether it's someone who is a female or an ethnic minority in their country, or someone who has a lifestyle that is counter to the majority culture, especially talking about the LGBTQIA plus community that is not free to express themselves in a public sense, but online, on a platform, on a social whatever, on a marketplace of some sort. Technology really is a great equalizer that allows these people to have dignity, to have freedom of self-expression, to make a living for themselves. And what America considers to be very inexpensive. In some of these countries, the exchange rates are such that a little tiny bit of American money goes a long way in their country.
Yes. So if you have American expats buying, the Portuguese products, and you can create income. And that's what I learned in the Middle East when I was in the Peace Corps. I quickly learned I'm really no good here. Like, just my two hands, like, they need jobs. I need to create economic. They need economic empowerment. I need to, and so that was really quick. I learned this is we got to create jobs. So that was the idea with this global marketplace, which got shut down one day. Cyber attack. If you have any business, you've got to be careful. Yeah,
and we're really intentional to not be promoting Fred and I. Fred does photography. We do commercial insurance and risk management here at RiskWell, and when you said that, my first thought was, oh gosh, I know exactly what that's like. We've been through that a lot with clients and channel partners and whatnot. It's like, gosh, I hope there was some sort of cyber policy in place where there's some way to recover at least monetary cost of system restoration and paying ransom or whatever. And just as a quick aside, folks, if you have a business, please, any business, have a cyber insurance policy, have a plan in place for what happens if you're the victim of some sort of cyber attack, whether it's phishing or social engineering, fraudulent transfer, ransom attack. If someone is just being malicious and trying to harm your business just because they want to harm a business somewhere, gosh, you've got to have a cyber liability conversation. And that's as close as I'll get.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be RiskWell.
No one takes it seriously.
Whoever you're getting your insurance information from, please have a cyber insurance conversation, because if something like that happens to your business, man, I hope there's a plan in place.
Well, as an entrepreneur, you're willing to risk what you're putting on the table.
Yeah.
But in a case like this, where money, like we were used, I won't go into it, but like so it was through Stripe, we were used as a pass-through. So money was stolen, passed through it wasn't even our money that we lost. So it wasn't even our investment and our investors. We'd been through an angel, a seed round with venture capital. Like, it wasn't
you guys
just
were doing
that
it.
money.
You guys were doing it right.
We were at the venture capital stage when this happened. So
wow.
Anyway,
we have 7 minutes left in this conversation. I'm going to shift abruptly to
Volunteer McKinney.
Volunteer McKinney. You started about a year and a half ago. And it's in your heartbeat. I can see just from this conversation and the look on your face, like volunteerism, civic engagement, empowerment. This is all close to the core of who you are as a person. Talk about Volunteer McKinney, what you're up to, your role now as the ED over there, and then just go straight into the action you want anyone to take.
Right.
Because a lot of folks listen to this podcast that aren't plugged in. They're not serving anywhere. They may want to be involved in what Volunteer McKinney is doing.
Okay.
Talk about your role there and the organization, and then go straight into your call to action, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. Volunteer McKinney is the city's volunteer center, and it used to be, a notebook where people could go and call in, and now it's all online. We have an online. It's a marketplace. It's like a dating site for volunteers. You can go online and you can look and see what tugs at your heartstring. Nonprofits all over the city, the county, and even really all over North Texas post their needs for people. We say time, treasure, and talent. So volunteers, supplies, funding, whatever it is that they need. They need a 12-passenger van. Do they need someone to come sweep the acorns off their sidewalk every day? And these are things that are posted there. Whether it's animals, veterans, homelessness, food insecurity, the schools, anything that you're interested in, you can go and you can look and shop and find a way to get connected. And obviously, the more connected we are to our community, the deeper roots we have, the more meaning and purpose we all have. I mean, it's just a win-win for everybody. We're the Collin County is the second wealthiest county in Texas. So I truly believe we have all the resources we need to meet the needs of our nonprofits who are serving our most vulnerable people. And we have a very compassionate community, I believe. So they just need to be given the opportunity. They just need to know what's out. Very rarely will people say no, especially if it matches up with their skills, talents, abilities, interests, and all of that. And so I just think we can build capacity. We can get them what they need. So it's really, I just been watching this organization for years, even since I was just on the PTO at Caldwell. Like that they have the power to really mobilize our community. And so when I got offered this position, I mean, it's just a dream job. I love it. I love every second of it. We work with the nonprofit leaders. Yesterday we had an executive director breakfast where we invite, and on our network we have 900 executive leaders, but we had about 60 leaders there yesterday at Gather in downtown McKinney, and it was a time for networking, knowledge sharing. We had a professional come in and give a whole presentation on strategic planning, and then it's really about building community, building coalitions, building, collaborating together, knowing, do you know everybody? If you're working with food insecurity, do you know everybody else? There's something like 30 places that give out food in McKinney alone. There's 1,000 nonprofits that have filed their 990s. That doesn't mean they're necessarily active in McKinney. There's 7,000 nonprofits in Collin County. There's lots of ways to give. So we want to train the nonprofits to be as professional as they can be, and so they can be as effective as they can be. We also work with providing these opportunities to the community. And then our big event that's coming up is our Volunteer Awards. That's coming up, and FredShots was our media sponsor last year and did all the photography and video. So our Volunteer Spirit of Volunteerism is our annual award where we throw a big party so the nonprofits can really recognize their star volunteers. So we have 7 categories. Nominations are out right now. You can nominate a volunteer, a group, a PTO, and you can even, this year we have a new category for nonprofits, specifically that run really strong volunteer programs. That's what we're looking to celebrate. So go on to volunteermckinney.org and you can find the nomination form if you'd like to nominate someone. And then the event is April 10th. It's going to be at the El Dorado Country Club. It's really just a wonderful event because everybody in the room is like trying to make our community better. It's just such a fun night full of just wonderful people. And so it's like my favorite.
I just have to say that there is so much energy, excitement, and crying at this event because, I mean, it's like everybody who gets up is a winner, the table where I was at, just hearing the testimonies of the people there and then moving around, taking the photos, running to people that I've seen and know, and just to hear their stories, I'm like, I'm thinking this got to be like an Oprah thing. You get an award, you get an award,
They're
you get an
all
award.
Winners.
They are.
And then all the nominees have done something extraordinary.
And then when you see, who is it? It was anyway, just seeing the candidates in there. So I'm just curious, a couple things, because I've worked with Volunteer McKinney for many years now. Do you actually track the stats of what do you do? Number of projects, number of people impacted. How do you track your metrics and set your goals?
We have really our software that we buy. It has great KPI. So and in the last year and a half, all of our key performance indicators have exploded. I mean, and all I've done coming in is activate what's already there, what people are already waiting. So we're measuring how many, on the nonprofit side, new accounts being created, their logins, they're adding shifts. All the food pantries use us, for their food pantry shifts, that kind of thing. And all of those numbers have increased in the last year and a half. So it's been really exciting to know, anyway. And then also with the volunteerism, we track registered volunteers. We have just some numbers. We have, I think, 18,000 registered volunteers on our site and about 1,000 response. So they're called opportunities, like a need. If someone says they need a 12-passenger van or they need a shift at the food pantry, this is an opportunity. So in October, we had 19,000 people view these opportunities. Just in 1 month alone, 1,000 a month on average are responded to. So what we're going to start working on is I really want to see, economic value in that. I want to start encouraging the volunteers to register their hours so we really know what does that look like, because a volunteer hours is $25 an hour. So what kind of economic value is that for our community with the volunteerism, right? But not everybody's tracking that. You're not if you're not serving on a boards and commissions, if you're not everybody is. But if we were to track that, the value would just be, I don't know, that would be very exciting to see.
That is a wonderful final question. We're going to skip the lightning round stuff. Okay, answer the question quickly. This is always fun. I'm going to start the music right now.
Uh-oh.
Who would win in a fight between a giant polar bear and a great white shark that occurs in a swimming pool that is 6 feet deep and of infinite size? There are no edges to the pool. It goes on forever. Who wins, polar bear or great white shark?
Shark.
Okay.
Is that right?
There is no wrong answer. It is simply a, how do you process the question?
Mm-hmm.
Why does the shark win?
Because the polar bear can't get out.
Okay. Because the polar bear can't get out. We haven't heard that answer before.
No. And I mean, and
love it.
You ask the question, and like half a second later, she's already got her answer.
Boom, shark. She's firmly on Team Shark. And out of respect for what you said your time was, that's it. Turn off music. No more music there. She is Allison Monroe, Executive Director of Volunteer McKinney. Folks, the call to action is go to volunteermckinney.com and see how Corsets.org. James, ask the ladies' website before you start talking. volunteermckinney.org. There's lots of ways you can plug in, either as an organization or as a volunteer. And that's all we have time for today. Allison Monroe, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Folks, this has been an episode of the McKinney Podcast, celebrating what makes us unique by nature. We'll catch you next week. Thanks, y'all.